Hello everyone, my name is Dwarvian, and today we are going to be talking about something very important. And it's a little bit different than what I normally do, but I think it may be the most important thing that I've ever talked about on here, which isn't saying a lot considering I haven't been here long, but nevertheless. Today we're going to talk about Memorial Day, and I want to ask you a question. What do you actually know about Memorial Day? Because I didn't know a whole lot, and I figured that was actually a pretty big issue considering that it's a national holiday and that I feel like all of us should know what we're actually supposed to be celebrating. Because it's not just a day off, it's not a 3-day weekend, it's not just something that you can just brush off. There's relevance, there's weight, there's importance. And I think we've begun to lose a little bit of that. So I did what I do best. I researched it. I'm going to share with you what I found, and I hope that you can take something from it. What is Memorial Day? Well, Memorial Day is a remembrance for those who have died in military service to our great nation. While that's a pretty broad statement, it's really important because they are really the heroes of our people. Like, they sacrifice themselves for us, and that's incredible. Like, how can you ask someone to sacrifice themselves, even though, they didn't really know they were doing it, but they knew the risk was there. And that's incredible to think about. But it's beyond just their sacrifice. You have to think of what their sacrifice meant. We have to think about why they did it, what happened because they did it, and the effect it has on us to this day. And we're talking about people who died hundreds of years ago, all the way up until last week. Everyone. And we have to really think about what that means. And we can't forget things like this, and that's crucial. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to throw some facts at you. It might be a little bit boring, but I think it's important. It really is. So I hope you bear with me on this. So I thank you for all who do in advance. But when it comes down to Memorial Day, it's all about the soldiers, typically. It's soldiers from every conflict, all the way from, Revolutionary War, I believe, was tied into it, but it really came to, the point where it was important in the Civil War. That's really where people began to realize that maybe we should have some sort of Remembrance Day, and honoring the dead was actually pretty important. But, it's an ancient ideal. So it's just something that we finally adapted into our society. The founder of this holiday was actually a man named General John A. Logan. He was kind of all over the place. He was a scholar, he was a politician, he was a general. So he worked his way up through the ranks in the military himself, and he was in the volunteer ranks in the Civil War, as well as the Mexican-American War, I believe. Don't quote me. He decreed that May 30th would be the National Day of Commemoration. That's obviously changing now, but we'll get into that. So it's important that you know John A. Logan, because I didn't know who that was, and he apparently is a very important figure in our history. There's a lot of them, so it's hard to keep track, of course, but he was a pretty big deal, and you'll see why later, because I have some information on him. So the questions that we have in here are like the typical, the who, what, when, where, and why. So I have it broken down into that. I'm going to move into the when portion now. So there's a lot of contestation when it comes to when the first Memorial Day, or Decoration Day as it was called, up until I think it was the 1960s when we actually changed the name. Or it was 1912. Anyways, so there's many states, or many towns in general, that were in contestation for finding out which is the actual first, or the first legitimate day of remembrance. And in specific, in 1864 in Boalsburg, Pennsylvania, it's one of the earliest recordings of people having an actual group meeting for mourning of lost soldiers. and it was, like I said, 1864. It was in regards to the Battle of Gettysburg, which happened the year before, and it was a group of women who got together. I believe they were mourning their husbands and lost children, which unfortunately happened a lot then. The next one would be in 1866. There was a parade in Carbondale, Illinois. It was actually held by John A. Logan himself, but that still didn't prove to be the first or the official celebration. And that is something I'm actually kind of proud of, because the celebration that takes the national seal of approval from the government was in 1866 in the town of Waterloo, New York. Now, this is really important to me because I actually grew up about 20 minutes away from this place, and that blew my mind. I thought that was the most fascinating thing I found about this whole situation, but that's just me, so don't mind me. So when this happened, they shut down all the businesses. They held an official annual celebration. So this happened every year on the same day, every year. And it wasn't actually recognized until about 100 years after the first one, which was in 1966. And that was President Lyndon Johnson who finally signed it into declaration that Waterloo would be the national acclaimed first Memorial Day. It's pretty cool. I like that. I like the fact that it was actually so close to home for me. That was really cool. But I'm gonna move on here. How does one celebrate this momentous event? Well, there's a few things that you should probably know that are national decrees, but no one ever really follows them, except for obviously the government buildings and whatnot. So if you are a true patriot and you want to get right down to the roots of America, these are things that you should be doing. So first one, if you have a flag on your property, you should be keeping it at half-mast, which is halfway down the pole, until noon of Memorial Day. Once noon passes, then you should raise it to the top of the mast, and then it should stay there the rest of the day. That's something I didn't know, so I'm glad that I know that now. And I actually kind of wish I had a flagpole, because I had one growing up, and I feel like I'm missing out now, because flags are cool. I mean, they're boring, but they're cool. So, another one. As of the year 2000, at 3 p.m. local time, that's your local time, there's no, time zone differential that you need to worry about here. 3 o'clock p.m. your time, there should be a moment that you just take and just a moment of silence, let's say. But it's called the National Moment of Remembrance. And that was another thing I didn't know. And I actually had never even heard of that before, considering, I was pretty up to date when I was in the military about the national holidays and like things that you should do, but no one ever told me about that one, so I don't know. But when you are celebrating this, you typically will find a lot of people going to graveyards, and there's military cemeteries that a lot of people go to, and those are fantastic, and I love the idea that we have that so we can like memorialize our fallen warriors. That's fantastic. But when people go there, they will leave flowers or mementos. Flags are a huge thing. When you leave flowers, poppies are actually the preferred flower, and I didn't know that either. So the reason that is because of a publication in 1915 called In Flanders Field. It was written by Colonel John McCrae, and he apparently had made a poem about how the flowers and the dead have some sort of correlation. It's actually a really good read. I'll post a link to it, or maybe I'll just copy it into the thing. I don't know if I can do that. I'll leave a link. So, and that's another really important thing, because you should know how to celebrate properly. Besides getting drunk and having a grand old time, you do that too, but remember there are some important things you should take a look at. And I love the National Moment of Remembrance, because I feel like the entire day you should be really thinking about things. Like, these are the days that we should be taking a moment and thinking about how this impacts us. History is huge, and we should feel that these people mattered, and not just send them to the wayside. Like, these people died for us, and we should give them at least the day that they're like warranted. Give them that day. Think about them. Think about your loved ones that may have died. I know my grandfather died in World War II. Well, he didn't die in World War II. He was in World War II, but he recently passed away. And the stories that he told me about everything that happened there, and it just blows my mind. Like, you see and hear stories and movies about renditions of the World War II era there, and nothing ever gives it justice. Nothing ever can give it justice, just because of everything that happened. But I don't want to get into that. So we have the what, we have the who, we have the when, we have the how. Now, why do we do this? Why is this day important? Well, these men and women died so that we can have the luxuries that we enjoy in the United States today. The people who died in the Revolutionary War hundreds of years ago impacted our lives directly today. Because you have to think. They were fighting back England. We could be an English settlement still. We could just be an extension of England. We could still be under a monarchy. Do you want a king? Do you want a, well, queen? Do you want a queen? I don't want a queen. Nevertheless, our brothers and sisters' sacrifice didn't just help us either. It's helped the world. But the world has become a better place because of their sacrifice. Think of World War II. Nazis? Are you kidding me? They would still be running rampant if we didn't step in. Like, yeah, maybe Russia could have pushed them back. Maybe England could have done their part too. But, like, we jumped in and the tide started to turn. Our boys on the ground doing work. You can't say that didn't affect that war. And because that war was won, we crushed something that could have been awful. So think of those things. And that's just one war. That's World War II, World War I. Very similar circumstances. People trying to take what is not theirs because they can. Because they disagreed. And there's countless examples. And I implore you to do your research. Look into our conflicts. There's a lot of contestation when it comes to, why we were there and all that, but look at the good that's come from it. Try not to dwell on the bad, please. But beyond all of that, we're given examples to live by. Like, their sacrifice, because they were so selfless, we can look at them and be like, wow, what were they like? Why did they decide to go to war for me? Why did they decide that their country was more important than their own safety? And a lot of it comes down to they were trying to protect their family. They were trying to protect their people. That's paramount. And you don't see that as much as you do these days. Or you don't see as much these days as you did then. And that's kind of a problem, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Don't mind me. Anyway, I'm gonna start wrapping this up, but I wanna throw one more opinion out at you. And I actually found some interesting information about this in my research as well, that as of recently, the federal government has actually been expanding this day to benefit people who are not just in the military, and I find that awesome. That is fantastic, because people die to better our lives, and those people aren't necessarily part of the military, but they share those same ideals. They are out there trying to protect their family, the people that they love, their people in general. Just trying to keep everything rolling safely, just keeping the world turning so that we can all do our thing. And I love that. I love the fact that they have embraced the concept that it's not just soldiers that are out there trying to better our lives. And I can't support that enough. I love that whole idea. But I think I've hit pretty much every point that I wanted to on this. I hope that you guys didn't get too bored with it. I like to think that I'm a little entertaining. I don't know. Let me know. But thank you all for watching, and I really appreciate you sticking with me all the way to this point, because this is important information. These are things that we need more of as time goes on, because the further we get away from these important events, the less people are going to talk about them, and the more it's going to become 3-day weekends or a day off, unless people sacrifice themselves for us. And we can't allow that to happen. We can't. We as a people cannot allow that to happen. It's just, we can't. Thank you all for watching this. I appreciate everyone who sees this, and I hope you have stay safe, a very safe weekend, and thank you. Have a great day.